As my craft?
Yes.
No, that's as far away as you can get. No, the OTCX-1 belongs to everybody. The conception was put together by some very meaningful and caring people, and it was based on a very, very caring and intelligent beings that wanted to see this happen. At the present time, well, me personally, I have to say this collectively because we are working in many different areas, and we have reached the stage of prototype reality where we are now ready to produce when given the signal that they're ready to understand the technology in the reality that it exists. Yes, the answer is we do have things waiting in the wings for people. Well, the first part of the question, I don't recall the statement being made from me that I had these in full operation or in operation at all. I did say that, you know, we were working on them, and we do have waiting in the wings things that attribute to making a better life for everybody, and they are in essence free of moving parts, free of pollution, free of maintenance of any kind, and we have to now raise the consciousness. That means wake people up far enough to let go of the old ideas of aerodynamics and combustion engines, etc., and just look into the reality of an easier, a simpler way that requires no fuel from Earth. The fuel comes out of the ethers, known in our vernacular as magnetism. And it's everywhere in the multiverse. Never run out of fuel. And no moving parts, because in the 50s and 60s when we were designing and building them, we did realize to understand vortex mechanics and quantum realities, we had to counter-rotate. This is the way nature does everything. She creates vortices everywhere. And so we had moving parts. Since then, we've met engineers in the electronic field that have proven to us that solid-state circuitry is now alive and well, and moving parts are history. We no longer have to do them with moving parts. So digital solid-state circuitry is an advanced version of what we did back in the 50s and 60s. Well, now I've just, you know, my status was a lab tech. I left where the previous job I had was a laboratory technician, and when I went to Carr, I thought that's where I fit in, but I became a gopher. I went for hamburgers and food and hot drinks for the guys, and I worked on the lathe because as a kid I was a machinist, so I knew how to turn things. I knew how to use a bench press, you know, a milling machine, etc. So I did cut some of the parts. I helped hold wires while they were connecting different things. I was kind of a day Friday boy around there. So I had many, many jobs. I was multitasking all the time. So, but my job wasn't to design, and my job wasn't to build per se. I helped them build it, but I was not the engineer, and I didn't have even though I understood sacred geometry and how exacting it has to be or it won't work, I honored that while I was working, and everything I did was with that in mind. But there was quite a few of us working on it, and so I was just a cog in the wheel. Well, I loved the guy when I met him. He was just pure spirit. His whole heart went out to humanity. He felt, when he looked at the earth, like, like I imagined, and what he conveyed to me from the viewpoints of Tesla, that we were slowly digging ourselves into a continuous wheel that would just go around and round and not evolve. It would revolve but not evolve because of the technology that was being used, based on a profit margin. The parts, the pieces, the ideas were based, what is my return on my investment? What can I do? What can we do to make more money? And this was not Tesla's idea at all. When he was with Westinghouse and they designed the dynamos at Niagara Falls, he did that. He was offered $50,000 at one time, and he turned it down and said, "No, that's for our work." So that's the kind of man Tesla and Carr were. They put humanity first, and if the money comes, it'll come, and if it doesn't, we'll find a better way or another way. He did emphasize to all of us all the time, 24/7, the need for understanding what consciousness was, to being consciously aware of every move. If we moved apart from point A to point B, we had to know exactly where we moved it from and exactly where we put it. And the idea of that training was to realize that in sacred geometry, you have to have your alignments exact. If you don't put them in the right place at the right time, you'll get no results. So by putting them and being conscious of where I put this or where I'm putting this at all times, it falls into place, and eventually whatever your cause is will have an effect that's successful. It was to create resonant frequencies of a designated rendezvous or landing point downrange that we were going to teleport to. Teleporting is something that has to do with being outside of what we call time and space. It just is a state of being, a state of the mind, and when the crystal resonated at the frequency equivalent to what was downrange, then we simply had the ability to move through time and space and rendezvous at that point and back again. The engineers, they took a truck and went down, and they had their instruments, and I don't know what they're called, but they equated the location to light and color, or the location was vibrating at certain vibrations and frequencies equated to light and color. So they said, well, this is it. They scanned the area and said, this is where the craft will come and go from. Well, the answer to that is there's nothing impossible, and that whatever is conceived by man can also be achieved by man. We weren't able to fly at one time. We weren't able to go to the moon at one time, and all these are history now, like spaceships will soon become. No, flying is a misnomer. You really can't. Flying is based on aerodynamics, and the craft itself didn't fly per se. It levitated, and once it reached a resonant frequency of where the intended destination was, it simply, to our physical reality, our eyes would become invisible. It would go downrange and come back. And I don't know if I should go any deeper into it than that. If you like, I will. But we were dealing with, and Carr kept us well aware of consciousness and who and what we are. Basically, we are energy. We are force fields. All of us are light beings. We lost the awareness of this because we chose to use our our powers of creation to create a third-dimensional reality, and move through time and space in segments. Actually, energy cannot be created or destroyed, and energy is everywhere. And we are a part of a one collective consciousness that's also everywhere. So in essence, we moved downrange at the speed of thought. We had only to think of where we were going, and we were already there because energy's everywhere. Well, I saw a lot of different plans, and we had scores of plans that weren't. We were obsoleting a lot of the plans because some of the things we were working with didn't come up to speed, didn't come up to the qualifications we required. So there was plans. I might say neatly stuck away, but they were on the benches and they were in the offices. So there was a lot of plans around. Well, a day at OTC Enterprises was a 24-hour day. Someone was on the benches or on the presses or on the designing tables or using what we had to put things together. So, and I remember being at 3 o'clock in the morning, being there when there was almost the whole crew working. Excuse me. But it wasn't a typical 9 to 5 operation. Everyone loved what they were doing, and that made the big difference. When I, excuse me, when I chose to go down and take a rest, I couldn't rest very long because I wanted to get back to what I was doing. That's how strong the love of the work was. We wanted to see it work, and the other people, the other engineers and the PR people and stuff were the same way. They get an hour or two rest, or maybe not even that, and they'd want to get back to work. It was a wonderful feeling. I mean, we loved what we were doing, and every time we made a step, we'd all congregate around, and Carr would make us understand how that step came about and what it was, and how important it was to stay in alignment with natural law, keep in resonant frequencies with the flow of energy as it flows. Yes, indeed, and they're very as anxious now, which does my heart a very, very good feeling because they're as anxious today as we were in those days. They understand sacred geometry, the codes that Carr put into the dimensions of mystery, a book that he wrote on poetry and prose and so forth, when he was turned down by the patent office to patent a device with levitation. He had to pull that out, and he wrote a book and said, when the day comes that they'll be able to decode this, we'll have spaceships again, because this is the sole story and simplicity of levitation and how simple it is. Well, yes, there were remnants, and I've carried them for years. Some of the remnants of some of the sketches and some of the specs and a few of the prints, but for the most part, realizing that the system was not ready for what we had to offer, we knew that we might be shut down, and we tried to protect what we had, but the shutdown came faster than we realized. We never thought that would happen so abruptly, and everything was confiscated. Everything was taken out of the offices, all the files, all the prints in the shop, all taken. He knew, and we also knew that we were very close to the edge of being shut down, because as Tesla was encouraged to stop because he was threatening the monetary system, we realized we were a great threat to the monetary system, because what we had to offer required, once built, the spaceships or the devices from the Utron that could be put in people's homes to accumulate and use electricity. There'd be no more need for the grid system and the meters and so forth. So it's a great threat, and to the automobile industry and the petroleum industry. And so we knew, and Carr told us, we don't know if we can get this going before we're shut down. So it was always a knowing that we had to face. But he also said, it's inevitable. It has to happen someday. And maybe we're just the middleman, or maybe we're the second or third or fourth, but someday it will happen, because it has to. Because they'll paint themselves into a corner and won't know how to get out unless they go to the visionaries, go to the inventors, go to the discoverers, people, garage mechanics that are putting these things together, and